It started like a quiet storm, unnoticed but unstoppable. In the small town of Maple Ridge, a man named Henry Carter, a humble and wise landowner, watched from his porch as trucks and construction crews rolled onto his wide green fields. They said it was progress. The HOA had big dreams, new stores, bright lights, and a promise of a better future. But no one asked Henry if that land belonged to them. He watched every foundation poured, every wall raised, every light flicker to life, and he said nothing. People wondered why he didn't speak up. But Henry had something stronger than anger. He had patience, and a deed tucked safely in an old wooden box. Days turned to weeks, and the buildings began to shine under the summer sun. The HOA celebrated their success, calling it the heart of a new community. They hosted ribbon cuttings, took photos, and shook hands with pride. Henry was always there, sitting on his porch, smiling faintly as though watching a play he already knew the ending to. When a neighbor asked why he didn't stop them, he simply said, "Sometimes, people have to see what they've done before they understand who they've ignored." Behind his calm eyes was a story written long before the first shovel hit the soil, one that would soon shake the entire town. The HOA continued its triumph. 12 buildings now stood tall, modern offices, restaurants, and shops. Investors poured in. Everyone forgot whose land they were standing on. Henry's quiet presence became part of the background, like the old oak tree beside his home. But that silence carried power. He had grown up on that land. His father had bought it decades ago when no one believed a black man could own property in that town. That deed wasn't just a paper, it was history, sacrifice, and proof of legacy. He let the HOA build their empire right on it, knowing they were building on truth they never cared to see. One crisp morning, Henry put on his best jacket, the one he wore to church every Sunday, and drove into town. The HOA board was holding its grand meeting in one of the very buildings built on his soil. As he entered, voices hushed. He walked slowly to the front, holding an old folder, its corners worn by time. "Good morning," he said softly. "I believe we need to talk about whose land you've been standing on." Laughter rippled through the room until he unfolded the deed. Silence. The HOA president's smile faded as his eyes traced the legal lines and Henry's signature shining at the bottom, dated long before the HOA even existed. The next hours were chaos behind closed doors. The HOA lawyers scrambled, documents were checked, maps compared, and disbelief filled the air. But Henry didn't raise his voice. He just said, "I didn't stop you because sometimes truth reveals itself best when it's standing tall." They had built 12 monuments to their own arrogance, and now, every brick was his. Reporters came, stories spread like wildfire, and the town was forced to look at what it had ignored for years: respect, rights, and justice. In the following weeks, the community watched the drama unfold. But Henry didn't seek revenge. Instead, he offered them a deal, a partnership. "Let's make this land work for everyone," he said. "But let it carry the name of those who earned it with sweat and dignity." That moment turned confrontation into connection. The HOA members, once proud and dismissive, now stood humbled, learning from the men they had underestimated. The 12 buildings remained, but now they bore a new sign: Carter Commons. Months later, as the sun set over Maple Ridge, Henry sat again on his porch. The wind carried laughter from the shops and the sounds of community gatherings. His land had become a place of unity, not division. Neighbors waved, children played, and everyone knew the story of the men who taught them what quiet strength looks like. Henry smiled, not because he had won, but because the land had finally spoken, and the town had listened. And so, the story of one man's patience became a lesson for generations, that real power doesn't shout, it waits. It doesn't destroy, it rebuilds. And when the truth finally rises, no wall, no title, no arrogance can stand against it. Henry Carter didn't just reclaim his land, he reclaimed the soul of a community that had forgotten how to honor its roots.